Greetings to all returning and welcome all newcomers. I am Lilith.winter.mclean. I am a Reborn doll artist. I make and sell the dolls, and I've also kept a few in my personal collection. So today I'm going to be reacting to a video I saw posted by a much larger creator that just seems to have a complete misunderstanding of what the hobby really is, and some just general misinformation. And I thought that I would go through it and just try and set the record straight for anyone who is curious about what a reborn doll actually is and what the people who collect them are actually like. Okay, first let's get disclaimers and all that out of the way. Please do not go and track down any of the creators featured in this video. Even if they are spreading harmful content on their platforms, this video is meant to educate and evoke critical thinking, not to mobilize an attack on anyone.
Other updates. We're going to follow sort of the category of get your children off of TikTok. I think I tell you this all the time. I'm like, I don't even think I can have a friend that has their child on TikTok, because I think that I would just be drilling into their head at all times. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? TikTok is for freaks.
So I'm going to elaborate on this issue a little bit further in just a moment. She does have an excellent point about children, not only on TikTok, but on the internet in general, because that is a very real issue, and everyone has a right to be concerned about some of those issues. However, I do find the blanket statement, only freaks are on TikTok, is a bit of a stretch. First of all, on any platform of social media, there is going to be the unsavory types. So it's not just TikTok. There might be a lot of phenomena on TikTok that people don't necessarily understand. I don't really get a lot of what's popular on TikTok, but I do find it sort of irresponsible to use such a derogatory term when it comes to people that aren't really hurting anybody. However, there is genuinely harmful things on the internet that you do need to protect your children from. There is probably a near endless list of very real problems that you do need to protect your children from on social media. However, reborns aren't one of them. Other than perhaps seeing one of the dolls and really wanting one, despite the fact that they aren't really toys and are far too expensive for most parents to afford, there's really no harm that could come from a child seeing reborn doll content. Not to say that it doesn't exist, but so far I have not seen any reborn doll content meant to manipulate a child in any way. The real issue I see here is there are much, much bigger fish to fry in a world of, just flat out misinformation and lies about everything from health to body image to just actual plain out predators looking to victimize a child. Reborns are frankly a non-issue in this discussion. So this next part could just be me misreading the meaning behind certain statements or reading too much into them, but statements like, what are we doing? TikToks is for freaks, to me sort of sends the message that the greatest concern for children on social media is them taking a liking to something that isn't seen as acceptable to widespread society and may cause them to be mocked or judged. This is a very damaging mindset for a developing mind and sense of self. Early childhood education specialists and child psychologists have proven time and time again that a parent or first caregiver trying to force a child to conform into what society views as normal or to stop an abnormal behavior in hopes to save them from being bullied, or perhaps to save themselves and other family members from being ridiculed from outside sources, is devastating to a child's mind and growth in just about every way. and is twice as damaging as a stranger doing the same thing. A child finding a new interest that might cause other people to judge them is the last thing you should be worried about when it comes to children on the internet. When there are proven studies that show that social media can warp a child's mind and alter their sense of reality, when there are actual predators looking to sexually exploit these children on these platforms, frankly, being concerned about something as superficial as what other people are going to think of your child is actually kind of sickening to me.
Fly your freak flag high. And that's what's going on. There is a category, you're not going to believe me when I share this with you. They're called Reborn dolls, right? They are dolls, baby dolls, and they look incredibly real. I'm going to show you a video, but in case you're listening to podcasts, just have to let you know that these dolls look incredibly real. They're supposed to be hyper-realistic dummies that can be treated like real children and even given a birthing ceremony and even a heartbeat.
Okay, so this is one that I probably hear the most that is just not true. These dolls are not meant to be treated like real children 24/7, and the vast majority of the community don't. These dolls have dust on them, and I should probably have, dusted them off before displaying them for a video, but my camera's not that good, so hopefully you can't see it. They have dust because, well, they're dolls, not real babies, and they sit there most of the time because I don't treat them like real children. They may sit in real children's furniture, they may wear real children's clothes, but I don't view them as sentient beings. I don't feel like I have to take care of them 24/7. For most of the week, they just sit there being displayed because they're pieces of art. They may happen to be interactive pieces of art, but for me, that just makes them more interesting. And as I said, most of the people who collect these dolls are the same as I am. They don't take care of them like real babies. They don't feel like they're real babies. A lot of them actually have real children of their own, and before you jump to conclusions, no, the real children do not get neglected because their parents are taking care of the dolls instead of them. So I'm not quite sure what she saw or what her team saw or where they got the information of a birthing ceremony, because I've never really seen anything like that. I mean, I guess there could be, but what I think they're probably talking about here is common on YouTube what is called a unboxing video. And that's basically just when people buy a new doll, they film them taking the doll out of the box, and, I guess you could call it slightly ceremonial, but I think that's stretching the term, considering what ceremonial really means when you get down to it. But usually when an artist packs a doll, they wrap it in a blanket and tie a ribbon around it to keep it safe because it's a work of art. It is somewhat fragile, and they don't want it to be damaged in any way during shipping because they are very expensive and they worked hard on that. So most often the way a doll comes is they will be wrapped. Well, there's usually something over the head to protect the eyelashes and the hair. They will fold the blanket over the head first, fold it this way, fold it that way, and then fold it up over the legs. So usually the natural way to unwrap the doll is they see the feet first, they see the hands, and then the big reveal is seen as the head, because, well, that's the most interesting part of the doll is the head. So I can see how that might, be called a birthing ceremony, but not really. I don't think anyone in the hobby really sees it as the birthing of the doll. Artists will send birth certificates with the doll, but really the purpose of that, and I tend to include the official time that the doll was completed at as a time of birth, just because, it's kind of fun. But the real purpose of these birth certificates is to write down certain information about, like, who made the sculpture that the final kit was casted from, who's the sculptor, what is the kit's name, because, like, Reborn terminology lesson here. First, there's a sculptor that makes the sculpture, then that's molded, a company makes it into vinyl kits, and each version of the doll has a specific name. Each sculpture has a specific name. So this one is Evelyn by the sculptor Cassie Brace, and then this one is, I'm blanking here, Reborn June by, well, she's a bad example because I'm not going to get that complicated into it, but I hope you get the point there. And that information, and like the artist's information, that is what the Reborn birth certificate is really for, is a way to present that information in sort of like a creative way.
Purpose of these dolls, you're wondering, why had they even been created? They run you about $1,000, by the way, if you want to get one of these dolls. But
so this is both kind of true and kind of false at the same time. The price of these dolls varies widely depending on the size of the doll and the cost of the vinyl kit and the skill level of the artist. Obviously, a doll that looks better is going to sell for better. If you're trying to get a prototype doll from a well-known sculptor painted by a well-known artist, you could be looking at well over $1,000. Personally, I don't think I'd be able to justify that expense. However, before anyone judges, just let me remind you that people buy from Gucci, even though it's only marginally better, if any better made, than something you would buy from the Gap. Just, sorry, a little shade there, just had to throw that out there. It's more usual for you to find a well-made doll around the $300 to $800 range, although you can find really good deals occasionally from new artists that are just starting to refine their skills but haven't gotten the notoriety yet.
The deeper purpose was for them to be used as therapeutic aids to help women that are struggling with infertility, miscarriage, and or loss of a child, as well as people that are generally just suffering from anxiety and depression. Now,
alright, so tiny Reborn history lesson here. People tend to incorrectly assume that Reborns were first invented to help people who suffer the loss of a child or have dementia or Alzheimer's or something similar, but that's actually not true. The first Reborns were created as just another type of art doll, kind of like porcelain dolls, only they're meant to look like real children and they're made of vinyl. It was only later that the same people making these dolls thought that their resemblance to real children could possibly be an aid to people who had suffered the loss of a child or a miscarriage or help dementia patients, but this was not the original intention for the hobby. They were never designed with the intention to be treated like real children. They were never designed with the intention of promoting mental illness or delusion or unhealthy attachment or obsession. And we will definitely be talking more about that in just a moment.
Now, I'm going to give you my take. First and foremost, I don't think that's a good way to deal with loss of a child, is by having a doll and treating it like a child. I actually think that's going the opposite way. I think that that is the worst form of therapy I've ever heard. I'd like to read whatever document it is, whatever study it is that has concluded that this could be helpful for a woman after suffering a miscarriage. That seems like exactly the opposite of what you should do. Fostering someone's imagination and pretending that they actually have a child cannot be healthy in the long term. And anything that is not healthy in the long term mentally, you can find on TikTok, right? Of course.
So we've already covered that her definition of what dolls were made for and what most people in the hobby use the dolls for is incorrect. However, let's play some devil's advocate here and say that she's coming from a perspective where, as far as she's concerned, every single person in this hobby is taking care of the dolls 24/7 like they are real children and are under some delusion that the doll is a real child or that the doll requires some sort of care from them. Well, then she has an absolutely valid standpoint, because that would not be healthy, and I do not advocate for that behavior. I say that like it's... Okay, so let's get one thing clear here. I'm sure that there has been or is a few people here and there who have had an unhealthy connection to one of these dolls. However, I find it a bit disturbing that people tend to come at that idea with such aggression and mockery of the person in that potential situation. Because if someone does have delusions towards this doll being a real child or requiring around-the-clock care from them, there is blatantly something going on in their mind, some sort of mental illness that is not our job to speculate about or diagnose. They're clearly not well. They're clearly going through a hard time, and if we do find someone in that situation, we shouldn't be attacking them. We should be encouraging them to get help. Is that likely to be met with hostility? Perhaps, maybe even likely. However, we're not helping anyone by attacking them. It's unproductive, and it actually pushes them further in the wrong direction. So I really don't get that sentiment, and if there is anyone that, if I ever encountered this, that would be the way I go about it, and I strongly encourage, if anyone finds themselves in a situation where they're facing a friend or family member who has an unhealthy connection to one of these dolls or any inanimate object, to do the same, to come at it from a place of caring and trying to understand. In most of these cases, it's probably because they're trying to fill some sort of void in their life, or they are just truly have some sort of mental health aspect going on, and people view the word delusional as an insult, but delusions actually are real, and it's not the person's fault, and it's something that they need help from a professional to help them sort out what reality actually is. And I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but the point is, we shouldn't be attacking people who are actually under some sort of delusion or have some sort of unhealthy relationship with these dolls, which again is very few and far between, but if you do encounter it, please don't attack them. Try and help them. So I always like to do research whenever I'm looking into a topic. I like to back up my thoughts with truth and actual fact rather than opinion or what is thrown out there on the internet. And finding, reliable sources based on peer-reviewed sources is... There's not a lot of that out there concerning Reborn dolls. I think it's because, frankly, it's just not that big of an issue, and, so people haven't actually taken to doing real research on it. There are a lot of articles out there on it, however, the validity and the sources for where they've gotten this information seems to be just, either frankly made up or just plucked out of the internet without doing a lot of research, and that also seems to be a lot of what is going on in the video I'm reacting to right now. Whether the articles take a positive or negative spin on it, there doesn't seem to be a lot of solid statistics on this, and when statistics are brought up, they seem to be kind of just manifested from midair without any real source or research to back them up. So for those reasons, it seems that the truth is there hasn't been enough real, reliable research on whether reborn dolls can actually benefit someone suffering from the loss of a child, or someone who has experienced trauma, anxiety, depression, any of that, or someone suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's disease or something that has a similar effect on the mind. However, there also isn't anything suggesting that it poses, the idea of having a reborn doll poses a significant threat either. I would imagine if there's pre-existing conditions that exposes the person to have tendencies towards delusional thinking or losing touch with reality, then I would think they might have a higher risk at developing some sort of unhealthy relationship with this doll. And for those individuals, I would understand their families being concerned, and they would probably have a legitimate reason to be concerned in those situations. Does that mean that someone with a history of mental health with delusions or hallucinations or any sort of thing like that, does that mean that they shouldn't be able to have a reborn doll? I don't think it's my place to make that decision. That's probably, their individual care team's choice to make, not ours. While there seems to be a lack of much real research on the topic, there is quite a few personal testimonies of people who vouch for the dolls, helping them through their personal journey with the loss of a child, whether it's miscarriage, stillbirth, or losing the child after their birth for any reason. There is also people who say that the dolls help them with just general trauma or bringing them comfort from depression, anxiety, other things like that. And then there's people who say that having the dolls helped their loved ones suffering from something like dementia or Alzheimer's. No one vouching for these dolls is suggesting that getting one of these dolls be the only source of treatment for people experiencing any of the before mentioned situations, because that probably would not be smart. These dolls are suggested as just an aid, just a small comfort for these people in a very troubling time. And if their doctors don't see any negative side effects of these small coping mechanisms in addition to other proven methods of coping and treatment, then I don't see a reason why a doll bringing them comfort in this time is something that we should prevent or intervene with or say shouldn't be allowed to happen.
These women, by the way, there's no evidence that they have suffered from any of these things. They just realized that they could buy a lifelike baby doll.
Now, this could be another thing that I'm misinterpreting or misunderstanding, but it kind of sounds like she's saying if you haven't experienced some sort of loss, or if you don't have Alzheimer's or dementia, then you have no reason or shouldn't be collecting these dolls. Which is kind of confusing considering she doesn't think people with before mentioned conditions or experiences should be collecting these dolls either. And like, we've already established that these dolls aren't intended, or nor should they be considered some sort of medical or mental health aid. They're just, comfort coping mechanisms. So it's not like they're not like mobility aids or a disability parking ticket. No, that's not what that's called. Placard? I think that's what it's called. My grandma has one because she broke her leg. You know, so they're not like that. It's not something that, like, well, if you don't meet X and Y criteria, it's taking advantage of it to have it. It's not like that. And, you know, considering her stance on it, it's weird. So what is she trying to say? That these dolls shouldn't exist at all? Because that's kind of a harsh statement to make, especially when, you know, like, there's, as we're establishing, there's no real harm that they can cause. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean that other people shouldn't be able to enjoy that thing. And it certainly doesn't mean that you should get a free pass to criticize or attack those people. The large majority of the Reborn doll community haven't experienced some sort of loss, and they don't use the doll as a coping mechanism for anything. They collect the dolls just simply because they want to. There isn't a requirement to join this hobby or to buy one of these dolls, nor should there be. And it seems like a weird thing to gatekeep, especially when it's not harming anyone.
And this one woman who I'm going to show you has even gone so far as to take this baby doll to the doctor. And that's, I don't know, guys, just take a listen.
But we're going to be treating it responsibly. And she's still running a fever. She is hungry because she is really fussy. So we're going to make our bottle again. The doctor gave us medicine for her, so we are going to give her medicine with her medicine passy. So let's get into that. I'm going to put her in her crib just so I can have my hands empty. Here we are. So we got her prescription meds. She, our doctor, our pediatrician, prescribed us with some ibuprofen. So let's check it out. So we're gonna put this in her passy, but first we need to make a bottle. Actually, no, we need to do the passy thing first. So we've got her medicine pacifier. This has been a lifesaver for us. 2 milligrams.
Okay, so I am pretty sure, like really sure, there is a potential that I could be wrong, but I'm almost certain that this video she's showing now is what is referred to as a roleplay video. And these are common on YouTube. It's basically like a little skit. It's like a little play, you know, that depicts a moment in life that someone would probably experience if they had a real child. It's just a little play, and it's the person acting, and I guess the doll is technically like another actor, but not really. It's like a cross between an actor and a prop. Because obviously it can't actually act, but I can see why roleplay videos might confuse someone just looking in from the outside of the community, because at a glance, what you're seeing is someone interacting with a doll as if it's a real child, and often talking about the doll as if it's a real child. However, most but not all roleplay videos will say roleplay on them or have some sort of disclaimer. Not to say it's wrong to not, but I can definitely understand where the misconception comes from, because if you're just seeing it and have no further context, I can see why it looks like that, because frankly it does look like that. But these videos are just little performances. They're created just for entertainment purposes, and when the person is done filming these videos, they put the doll down, and they do not continue to take care of it in the manner presented in the video. So I fully suspect that that's exactly the case for this person in this video now, that she is just This is just one of her roleplay videos that she posted online that is now being taken out of context. Again, I can understand where the out of context comes from, but I'm pretty sure that that's what's going on here. And I will try to find her channel or platform or whatever later to see if my suspicions are correct. But if we're looking at things from a logical viewpoint, again, if someone is actually under the delusion that the doll they're taking care of is a real child, if they're making a video, they're not going to post it under Reborn content. They're going to just post it under any old, family content, because they in their mind it's a real doll, and we just don't see that happening. We see the occasional algorithm mix up that slots in a video about reborn dolls into someone's feed when they're interested in like family mommy vlog stuff. But we don't see reborn creators purposely posting their videos into that genre, because, well, it's just not a thing. We don't really actually see people who have a delusion that the doll is real on the internet. We just don't see it. Can we say for sure that behind the camera that they don't have an unhealthy relationship with the doll? No, we can't, but we don't see that being presented online. Not to say that it's not out there in some corner, but I have never seen it myself.
Her baby doll has COVID. And what the thing that's bizarre about this video is, by the way, it doesn't look like a fake prescription. So I'm just very curious as to what she is pulling out of that CVS bag.
Okay, let's get back into serious again. Now I'm not saying this is what she did, and we'll check on it in a moment, but if this person did make a video alleging that the doll had COVID-19 in a roleplay video, that is not by any definition okay. If this is just, an old run-of-the-mill roleplay video where it's just, baby has a cold, that's generally harmless. But if she did say that the situation in this roleplay video is baby has COVID-19, that's not okay. In a time when real people and real babies were actually passing away from this. Yeah, I just... no other thoughts about that. If that is what happened, people have every right to be angry about that, and if that is what happened, frankly, I'm angry about that, because it does not set a good representation for the community. Yeah, I don't know if that is what happened, but if it is, that's just yucky. Not okay. Okay, I'm just gonna say it that this pretty obviously looks like a bottle of infant Tylenol to me. You can see a snippet of the red label. It looks like infant's Tylenol that you can buy at any grocery store or any pharmacy, anywhere really. Just go in and pick it up off the shelf. It could be different where other people live, but here in Ontario, Canada, prescription medication never has a decorative label of any sort. And yeah, it looks like it's infant's Tylenol. Now, I don't think I could ever justify the expense of actually buying a bottle of infant Tylenol to feature as a prop in a roleplay video. However, it's not necessarily wrong to do so unless it took place during the time where infant Tylenol and most cold flu medicine was in short supply and really hard to come by, because then you're, using up resources that a real child could need. But we don't know that that's what happened here. She could have had it in her house already. Now, while the bag she pulls it out of does look like a real prescription medication bag to me, the font is far too small to really tell what it says. This could be a random bag that had something else in it. It could be a bag that she got a prescription medication of her own in. But let's look at this logically here. If for her to have real prescription medication for the doll, she would have had to take the doll into a real doctor's office, have the doctor examine the doll, and the doctor then write a prescription in the child's name, and it's just a doll, so the doll can't have a name. In order for a child to have a prescription written out, they have to, they have to be a real person. They have to have been born. They have to have an identity, a birth certificate, a real name to have that medication prescribed to. So what is the more likely scenario here? The situation I just described, where a real doctor wrote a prescription to a fake person, knowing it's a fake person, or she just bought a bottle of infant Tylenol, or had a bottle of infant Tylenol and popped it in another prescription bag. Because that seems like the most logical thing to me.
She is putting into the real milk. She's actually purchased real formula. Never mind that there was a formula shortage, because women with fake baby dolls are getting formula, and she's making a real bottle, and she is putting what looks to be real medicine inside of that bottle to distribute it to her fake baby doll. And
okay, the statement there was a formula shortage because women were buying it for their dolls is wildly inaccurate. Can I say for sure that some people in the community weren't buying formula during the shortage for their dolls? No, I can't say that because I can't possibly know that for sure. And I would not support that behavior, as the same with the infant Tylenol. You can't be buying something that a real person needs as a luxury. You just can't be buying something that a real person needs to use it as a prop in the midst of a shortage. It's just not okay. I can't say for sure that that didn't happen with someone in the community, but I don't think it happened often, and it's definitely not what contributed to the shortage or caused the shortage. Furthermore, when you see a doll being fed in a roleplay video, very rarely is it ever real formula, because real formula goes bad really quickly, and it's just a waste of money. So usually what you're seeing is, oh man, there's mold in this. Well, that negates what I just said. Usually what you're seeing is this, which this is a very old concoction of fabric softener and water that has collected mold, but it did stay good for quite a few years, and that's usually what you're seeing. And these fake bottles are usually sealed with glue so they don't leak. Occasionally have people used real formula in videos as roleplay. Yes, they have. A lot of people don't, though, because it's so expensive. It's like kind of it's a waste of food and kind of a waste of money. If formula is in abundant supply at the time, I don't think it's necessarily wrong to do so, but it definitely is wrong to do so during a formula shortage. And I could never justify the expense when the fake formula method works so well, except for when you just leave it alone for like 3 to 4 years and then it starts to form mold.
she's not the only one. This is all over TikTok, of women that get angry with other people that are like, what are you doing? This is not a real baby doll. They get angry and upset because in their mind, these are real babies and they are spending real money.
So are there people online who get angry when people in their comments tell them that the doll is not a real child? Again, I can't say that it's never happened because, you know, I can't make that statement because I can't possibly know. However, I have never seen it, and it definitely isn't common. What I suspect she's talking about is situations where someone who is confused, doesn't know what they're seeing, asks questions in the comment section of a Reborn doll post, and the creator or other commenters come back aggressively, which has happened, you know, can happen. Now, I don't support this behavior because I think, you know, if someone's genuinely asking questions, you know, if they're just confused about what they're seeing and they want to know what they're seeing, I think that we shouldn't go at them aggressively. You know, all we can do is, you know, all actually explaining it to them can do is help the community. If people understand something, then they're a lot less likely to attack it. Doesn't mean that they have to be into it, but if we actually explain to them what the hobby is, then we can only help ourselves. If they choose to dislike it or choose to attack it after that, then, you know, there's nothing we can do. But I definitely don't approve of people in the Reborn doll community attacking people who are just trying to figure out what they're seeing on their screen. More often than not, though, people don't ask questions. They just skip right to hurling insults and casting judgment and jumping to conclusions and calling people that post this content crazy. And then, although I don't necessarily, I mean, I guess it's each to your own how anyone deals with this sort of behavior. Personally, I just ignore those comments. But, you know, I can see why it makes people upset and why they come back at aggressive comments with aggression of their own. And I think that's probably the situations that she's taking out of context here. It's not people getting angry because people are online are telling them that their doll is not a real child. They know it's not a real child. What the situation actually is this person misunderstands what they're seeing, and instead of trying to figure out more about it, they just skip straight to judgment and aggression. And, well, aggression usually gets aggression back. Okay, so when I started this video, obviously on a completely different day, I went into it without doing any background information on the people involved in the video because I didn't want any information about the personal people. I didn't want any information clouding my judgment and affecting my ability to play devil's advocate for both sides. I have now, and because I'm thorough and because, like, research, fact, backing up statements is, like, one of the most important things to me, and, you know, part of the point of this video, I have gone back and looked into the original poster of the video reacting to the Reborn doll video, and I have also found the person who posted the Reborn doll roleplay video, which is what it is. First, let's talk about Cues and Cradles Nursery, who is the original poster of the Reborn doll roleplay video, which is, as I expected, exactly what it is. It is credited as a roleplay video, it is in the title, and nowhere is it alleged that the doll is anything other than a doll, other than the fact that through the roleplay video, it is acting as if it's real, which I know is kind of confusing, and again, that's why I can see the misunderstanding, but again, it doesn't take a whole lot of effort, and you don't even have to leave that video to figure out what is actually going on there. From other content that I've found from this poster, I see no indication that she is anything other than the run-of-the-mill collector who has no unhealthy connection or delusion based on her collection. And again, I can't look through the camera and see into their life, so I can't say that for sure, but from the content that is posted, there is no reason to suspect that she is taking part in this hobby in an unhealthy manner. Nowhere in this video does it allege that the doll has COVID. I mean, devil's advocate, I'm sure the title of the video could have contained it and it was changed, or things were cut out, but I can't find anywhere where she alleged that the doll had COVID, so Candace or her team must have pulled that completely out of thin air, or, you know, devil's advocate, Cuties and Cradles went back and took that part out. So this seems to be nothing more than just your run-of-the-mill Reborn creator making a video about a baby with a cold. I will link that original roleplay video below. I mean, like, part of me wants not to because I don't want anyone finding her through my video to harass her. And from what I can see on the multiple different platforms that I've found the same creator, she has been absent for basically the last year, which coincides with the Candace Owens video. And I just sincerely hope that's a coincidence and it's not the backlash from that video that caused her to stop creating content. And if Cuties and Cradles Nursery should see this, I mean, I'm happy to talk to you at any point. I mean, I'm here to lift you up, and I'm really sorry if you know, if there was harassment or if the Candace Owens video caused people to come at you from a place of aggression, because it's not right. Okay, now the original creator of the video I'm reacting to in the first place, Candace Owens, who I had not heard of before finding this video in my feed, and I purposely set up talking points about the video without looking into her, as I said, to keep my mind open, which I think in this case was probably a very good idea for a couple of reasons. To be perfectly honest with you, the line between what is a personal opinion and what is bias and what is hate speech and complete discrimination is a line that is frequently displaced in society. So without going too far into that, I decided to keep this short, even though I could go down a rabbit hole with this, but that's not why I'm here. In short, she seems to be an individual with a very large platform, and she does have some good viewpoints. However, she also seems to have a lot of very blunt viewpoints on very nuanced and very complex issues facing today's society. She seems to come at these very nuanced, very complex issues from a very one-sided, very cut and dry, shallow point of view, and uses bias based on one or two people or one or two incidents, which are based on not the actual incident, but what has been reported about the incident, to back up these claims, to frankly discredit and dehumanize entire groups of people who are suffering and who are already very vulnerable. She seems to feed on much, much more serious issues than what I'm tackling in this video, because I've already said, in the scheme of things, reborn dolls and hobbies and such is it's tiny fish. There are whales to fry compared to this issue. However, it does speak to the much more serious issues that I'm trying to speak on in the heart of this video. And what is that much more serious issue? Well, the point of this video for me was to entertain and, well, more importantly, to educate not only about the hobby of reborn dolls, but a much wider spread issue. This issue goes so much farther than dolls or hobbies or a little online bullying, because we know for a fact that online harassment can actually lead to much more devastating places than just a little bit of trolling. And perhaps maybe the harassment that the Reborn doll community receives, or other more taboo hobbies receive, maybe that doesn't go to the deepest, darkest places. But we know that harassment online has the potential to go to the deepest, darkest places. And I think everyone knows those deepest, darkest places that I'm trying to get at with a bunch of words that you're not allowed to say online anymore, which is a shame when you are trying to bring these issues to light, to try and create a better place where these issues can be talked about, and in the hopes that these issues can be made better and even prevented. The issue of harsh judgment and harassment towards someone that is doing something that isn't deemed normal is a problem that stems all the way back to the dawn of human civilization. Humans made societal norms based on a multitude of criteria, but very few, if any, of those criteria are based on what harm a certain behavior causes. Slowly, especially in the past few decades, we've grown a lot as people and realized that we don't all need to conform to one set standard, and have even come to a place where difference is celebrated, but we still have a hell of a lot of work to do. For a long time now, we've encouraged individuality, and being quirky has become a trend, until someone takes it just a teensy bit too far, and then all of a sudden they become the target. We don't ask ourselves why, we don't try to understand the person, we don't come at them from a place of wanting to know more or trying to better make a connection, we just attack. But why? Why do we needlessly attack someone? Why do we jump to conclusions without trying to check if our assumptions are right, turn the other cheek just to help justify our actions? And I'm not perfect. I am guilty of blind judgment without reason too, and I think everyone is to an extent. But where it goes overboard is when you put it on another person. I mean, everyone's going to have needless judgment in their head. It's part of the human condition. But why can we as adults not stop it from going back to the schoolyard bully? Why can't we keep those thoughts in our head? Why can't we stop those snap judgments, needless, baseless snap judgments, from affecting how we treat other people? It's a cycle that's been repeating itself over and over again all throughout human history, with very serious problems like LGBTQ plus rights, to very small-scale issues like what hobbies should be found socially acceptable. And it continues today in all degrees. And when we try to resolve these problems, when we try to question the way this cycle has been continuing throughout centuries, we're met with backlash and aggression as if we're trying to stage a personal attack on certain people. But asking someone to actually think about their thoughts and their actions isn't a personal attack. It's trying to bring more peace to the world. It's asking for someone to better themselves. And I'm not sure why, as adults in society, to the point that we're at with everything we're able to accomplish, why so many full-grown adults are incapable of asking themselves, am I wrong? I'm going to read a quote from one of the Harry Potter books that I've always found speaks volumes on the issue at hand here. Now, quick disclaimer, I absolutely do not support some of the harmful viewpoints set out by J.K. Rowling in the past few years. Froglings Reborn dolls, can't even say the name of my own brand for some reason. Froglings, any content, any space that I occupy is always going to be an LGBTQ plus safe space because I'm a part of that community too, and it would be self-deprecating for me to ever not. However, I do still think that this one passage in the message of it still does hold true. I'm going to paraphrase slightly here. When my sister was 6 years old, she was attacked by 3 boys. They'd seen her practicing magic, spying through the back garden hedge. What they saw scared them, I expect. They forced their way through the hedge, and when she couldn't show them the trick, they got a little carried away trying to stop the little freak doing it. This quote explains judgment and harassment of people doing harmless things that are seen as taboo very well, I feel, as strange as that might seem considering recent views of its author. The little boy characters in this passage saw something they didn't understand, and when confronting the girl, still challenged their shallow points of view. Instead of trying to open their minds, they savagely attacked her. Why? Because it was easier than confronting the uncomfortable reality that the world doesn't and shouldn't fit into the small box of what they personally deemed as normal. Now, a fair bit of that statement is a bit harsh considering the characters in question are children. In a real-life scenario, of course, children wouldn't be completely absolved of any wrongdoing because that teaches them nothing. However, it's not completely their fault either because they're children. And children do what they do and think how they think because of what adults around them have taught to them. That being said, we see the exact same things and the exact same patterns happening when adults target other adults, and even, especially in the days of the internet, adults targeting children. All for the crime of taking part in something harmless that is seen as a little bit too taboo for preconceived standard. From a grown woman collecting and playing with dolls, all the way to someone challenging gender norms. When you look at it from a productive angle and take it right down to base values, what's happening here is no different and no better than schoolyard bullying. Only we aren't kids anymore. And it is not 1960. Next time you see someone taking part in something you don't understand, instead of jumping to mocking or harassing them before jumping to conclusions or making assumptions, try to ask yourself, who are they hurting and why should they not? Keep your thoughts to yourself. Keep walking, keep scrolling, or maybe be a genuinely curious person and ask them questions. Try to learn more about them. Try to learn more about a new thing without rejecting it first. Maybe ask yourself, why does this spark anger in me? Because of someone doing something you don't quite understand that isn't harming someone makes you want to attack them. Maybe the problem lies within and not with the other person. I promise having this mindset is exceptionally freeing because it's a process I've had to go through, and I know how effing scary it is to challenge everything you know, everything you think hold true, everything that was taught to you as a child, but it's so freeing. Ultimately, I'm much happier and a much better person for it. I'm not perfect because I don't think anyone ever really can be perfect. But I continue to work on myself because to ever think that I'm done learning, done growing as a person, well, it makes me ignorant and really means I have nowhere left to go in life. Life changes, and we as people have to change too. We need to take a lesson from the dinosaurs who couldn't change. Those who can't change, who can't adapt to an ever-changing world, are certain to face bleak outcomes. Maturity is someone who accepts that normal is something that every single person themselves defines, something that you can't define for anyone else but you. No single definition is right or wrong, but what is wrong is using your personal definition to abuse someone else. Ultimately, I'm no expert in psychology or much of anything that lies outside the realm of artsy stuff. I'm just a young woman that is finding her place in this world and who realizes that we do have responsibilities for what we say, how we act, what we put out in this world. We have a responsibility to consider how we affect other people, because how we affect other people on a wide spread affects the world, because people are the world. I want to make the world a little bit brighter and a whole lot less judgmental. I want to make the world a more accepting place, because frankly we all have the ability to reach inside ourselves and do better. We can do better, and we all deserve better. The whole world does. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, I guess. Oh boy, I'll show myself out. And that's Froglings, everybody. Love yourself. Never stop trying to better yourself. Think before you act, before you speak, before you post. Spread love, not hate. And never stop doing what you love. Never stop being yourself just because someone doesn't understand.